What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me here on the Twin Halos podcast. I am your host, RJ, and today we got some good things, especially if you're a local motocross rider. We got some things for you to practice. So the weekend has ended and Las Vegas Supercross is over, and what a show that was. It was freaking awesome. So I don't even know where to start, 250s or 450s, because they were just crazy, full of drama. So let's go 450s, just because I think 250s is even better than the 450s. Dungey, awesome, getting that good start, but surprised. I didn't even think that this would be a strategy in Tomac and slowing down to try and bunch up the pack. I thought that was awesome. That was an insane race. I had no idea what was going to happen. I was expecting Tomac to accidentally drop Dungey somehow, some way, but that didn't happen. I mean, he was good hard racing, but I don't think it. I was listening to another podcast talking about how Tomac was trying to take out Dungey. I don't think that was the case. I think he was just trying to slow him up so that the pack behind them can catch up and hopefully get enough people to pass Dungey as he was blocking him in the corner. But either way, it was a good freaking race. It was awesome, and congrats to Dungey for doing that. So hopefully Tomac's gonna not crash as much throughout his next season, but we'll see how outdoors goes now. But the 250s, Zach Osborne goes down in the freaking first turn. That was insane. And then Savatgy falling the first freaking lap. Just so many things happened. And Smith crashed out. That was just chaotic. It was just freaking so. That should have been like a movie. That's what that should have been like. And then the last lap, I could not believe where Zach Osborne was. He put himself in the position to pass Savatgy, but the little controversial pass, which I think it looked worse than what it really was, because if you watch it again, Savatgy's left hand comes off of the clutch and the bike just takes off. So it looks horrible, like he completely took him out. But I mean, he bumped into him for sure, obviously, but it was his hand, it was Savatgy's hand coming off of the clutch and the bike just doing a wheelie and looping out like that. So I think it just looked a lot crazier than what it really was just because of that. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Not that my opinion is going to change the outcome, but congrats to Zacho getting the championship. And what I found out later was that he was fined $7,500 for that pass, but he still remains the champion. So I'm not sure what more on the dispute is going to be, but I could not believe that he came back all the way from basically dead last to putting himself in position to get the championship. So I thought that ride was pretty crazy. The pass, mixed emotions whether it was good or not. I don't know. I've never been in that position to fight for a championship like that, so I have no idea. And what I loved about that is when Ralph Shaheen was going freaking crazy, it's like his voice almost disappeared. He was just so into the race. It's awesome. But so that brings me to a few questions. Did Savatgy throw it away, and did Tomac throw away the championship? Savatgy, I don't know if I would consider that throwing it away. His last ride, to have Zach catch up to you all the way from last, I think that's pretty crazy. Not that he threw it away, but I don't think he was himself that race. For Tomac, it's frustrating because I don't think he threw it away. I guess you kind of can say he threw it away, just basically choking at the in New Jersey. He had a clear track and then falls down in that first lap and then cases the triple and just had this horrible ride. And that basically determined whether he was going to be champ or not, now looking back at it. But, oh, man, what a crazy freaking season this was. Which brings me to my topic today, what I wanted to talk about was why you need to lose a local motocross race. So I was looking back on some of my races, just thinking about this season, and I was listening to another podcast where they were talking about psychology and why that brought me to this point on why to lose a local motocross race. Now, you don't go do that on purpose, of course, but there's the psychology behind it, why you need to learn from those things, from your mistakes when you lose. There are more to learn from those type of things in life than compared to when you're winning, because when you're winning, you're not going to change anything. There's nothing else to learn. You're set. But when you're racing or riding, sticking with motocross, obviously, but when you're racing, you want to obviously try your best and get out there and be one of the top guys. But when you lose, you can't just look at it like, oh, I lost, I don't know what to do. Learn from that. Why did you lose? What did you do in your preparation that was different? Did that work? Did that not work? Were you fatigued? Did you start to develop arm pump? Did you not practice your turns, your jumps, whatever it may be? Losing is where you start to gain more knowledge about yourself. Even in life, this is even outside of motocross, no matter what, whether it's a relationship, you go through a horrible relationship, and then after the fact, that's when you start to really learn, oh, I was this type of person. She was this way, and you start to learn more about not only you, but the other person that you were with and what you like and don't like in a person. And then you start to become more picky the next time that you go out on a date or something like that. The next time you go out to race, you're going to be more picky with either your diet, the way you train for motocross, the way you weight train, the way you are cycling, anything like that. You're going to start to look at everything differently and start to pick out what you do like, what you feel changed, and then leave behind what you don't like and what you feel hindered you in your riding. And this also goes to the parents that have kids too. Just because the kids, I hate the fact that there's so many people that get these trophies just for participating. That doesn't teach them anything. I'm not saying that you need to be absolutely ruthless to these kids. You need to win and push it, pressure them to where it's not even fun anymore. But they need to learn from the adversity of losing. They need to learn, okay, were you actually trying? Can you honestly say that you were trying your best? And some kids, yeah, they were trying their best. And if it's a team sport outside of motocross, it's hard when it's not motocross because you're relying on more people than just yourself. But when it comes to motocross, you got to ask more questions so that your kids find their own answer. So what I mean by that is if they lose, you ask them, all right, instead of saying, oh, you'll get them next time, well, what did you feel? Why did you feel like you lost? What could you have done better? Did you really try your hardest? If you consistently ask questions, they'll come up with their answer, or you can guide them to an answer that you know that they weren't trying. Don't tell them blatantly like you weren't trying, you were doing this. Don't completely attack them. This goes for anybody outside of kids. This is for anybody that's, you're talking to your friends that were racing or anything like that. But if you start to ask questions, this is where I learned this from was the military. In order to make rank, I had to go through what's called Airman Leadership School. This is for the Air Force. I don't know what it's like for any other branch. But anyway, the leadership school was always, as a supervisor that had a subordinate underneath me, I needed to understand what their purpose was when doing whatever act that required disciplinary action. So the thing was with that, they always asked questions. There was constant questions asking, why did you do this? Why? What's going on? Is your home life, is that okay? How does that affect what you are doing in the workplace? And I took that into how to become a leader and how to be not just, I was going to say not as a parent, but I don't even have kids. But because if you're a parent, you are in a leadership position. And you have to ask the questions in order for the other person to find their answer. You got to get their wheels turning to understand, you know what, I really didn't try. And then you got to ask yourself this. If you're not a kid, you're not a parent, you're the one racing, what is it that you can do differently that you didn't prep for? Or what was different in this race that you didn't prep for the last race? And how are you going to change that? Or how are you going to prepare for that? That's where you learn the most. You don't really learn from winning. Yes, it is good winning. I'm not saying don't try to win, but learn from these adversities. That way you can become stronger every time you get back onto the bike and every time you go out onto the track. So with that being said, I want to give you something to practice this weekend. That way the next time you go out and race, you can actually apply these and become better the next time that you race. So the number one thing, especially when I was racing, I seemed to be the only one out in Florida at this certain area, not all of Florida, but this certain area in Florida that nobody would practice their starts. And I made a whole video on these 3 tips that I'm about to give you that you can go watch on YouTube. So if you go to Twin Halos YouTube, you can find these tips there. But the first one is practice your freaking starts. If motocross, the unfortunate part about the sport is it's all about the starts. And I guess, well, it can't be because Zach Osborne came back from dead last. But anyway, on the local races, it's more about the start. Get into a good position at the beginning of the race and then maintain that throughout the entire race. So practice your starts. Also within that video, I show you what to do with your feet. And what you want to do is lock your feet in front of the pegs. That way they don't drift behind you. And as your body starts to swing back, you're going to help pull the bike back, and that's going to slow you down. So lock your feet in front of the pegs when you start, and then whatever depending on whatever the terrain is, whether it's concrete or dirt, that's going to depend on what gear you start in. First gear, second. So you've got to determine these things prior to doing your starts, but you got to make sure that your feet are locked in front of the pegs. I thought this was just general, just basic knowledge, but apparently this last few weekends that I've been at the track, there's a lot of people practicing starts and they're not doing this one technique. So make sure you're doing that, because you want to leave as one piece from that box. You want to make sure that you and the bike move as one, and you're not fighting the bike and you're not fighting the momentum pushing forward. So make sure you do that. Try different starts on certain surfaces in different gears. Which one is going to be best for you? And you got to understand how or where your throttle is going to be, because once you get lined up with multiple bikes, if you've constantly raced with just like maybe 5 or 6 people in your race and you're new to this, and then all of a sudden your class is now packed with 10 people and you got a lot of people on either side of you, you're not going to be able to hear your bike. And that's going to be the difference right there in your start. So you have to go off feel. That's why the starts are so important, because you can't hear anything now. You can't determine what your bike is doing unless you feel that certain rev, those certain RPMs, that RPM range, holy crap, that you want to find that certain RPM range that you can feel this is where you need to be, and then take off without any question. You don't hesitate. You know exactly where it needs to be. So practice your starts. This is definitely going to help you. And you want to get out of all of the crap that's going to happen in that first turn. The first turn, so many things can go wrong. Get out of that and get away from it. Get out in front of the pack as fast as you can. So if you were to do that, tip number 2 is the technique. And the unfortunate part about that, if you're at a local motocross track, your first half of the first lap, the technique goes completely out of the window. I know this firsthand because I did it. I was just focused on the whole shot. I got it every time, and then after that, my technique was crap. My heart was racing, my adrenaline was pumping, I was riding over my head, and I never practiced the way I was going to race. So that was a big issue with my training, was not practicing the way I was going to race. Because once the race came around, I was riding over my head. My technique was out of, completely horrible. I couldn't adjust to the turns. I was coming into the turns a lot faster. I wasn't ready for that. I would stand my bike up a lot. I would fall all the time, because I think coming into the turns faster was going to be the necessary thing in order to increase my speed. But I never prepped for that, and I would always wash my bike out. Either it was the front end or the rear end would slide out from under me, or just all these stupid mistakes. And it was just the fact that I never practiced the way I was going to race. I always just practiced riding around the track and then never understanding that when the race came, I'm going to ride a little faster. I'm going to do stuff that arm pump is going to set in a lot earlier. Fatigue is going to set in earlier. And if you're not practicing the way you're going to race, you're just riding around the track. And then once the race comes, the same things are going to happen. So start to improve your technique. And also take different lines around the track. The race line is not always available. Oh man, it was hard once I realized coming into a turn and there's 2 to 3 more people coming into the same turn that this race line is not available. Now I need to learn how to turn without a berm. I need to turn in a flat. I need to turn in the flat part of the turn. There's not a lot of traction, but I need to know how to do this and to avoid taking everyone out, and so I could keep the bike on 2 wheels. So you've got to practice every line in the turn that you might possibly be in order to get around the track and not hurt anybody or put yourself in a position where you're going to knock somebody over or you're going to take yourself out. So practice every line that you may possibly be in. Take the jumps on the inside, on the outside. Try every different line, especially in practice, because you have the freedom to do that. If you need to, cut the track. I used to do this. I cut the track and just drilled a certain turn. At every motocross track, there's not one turn, one exact turn all the way around the track. Every one of them is different. Some are going uphill, some are coming downhill, some are flat, some have berms, some are rutted. There are just so many different ones. So practice each one. If you need to cut the track, do it. Obviously, pay attention to all the other riders. Don't cut everybody off. But at the track that I was riding at in Florida, they had let us do that. So if your track owners let you do that because it's such good practice. Just consistently practice those turns over and over just to build your technique. Let's see, what else was I going to do? Tip number 3. Oh my gosh, this was, if I could avoid this, I would have, but I didn't. So tip number 3, do not fall. That's the biggest one. How do you do that? That goes back to number 2, your technique. With this, do not fall. It's a fact that you got to keep the bike on 2 wheels, because once you fall down, now you got to get back up, get on the bike. Now your heart starts racing. Now you kick the bike over, you take off, and now you have to go faster. You have to go faster than what you were riding, and you have to go faster than the guys ahead of you in order to catch them. This is where fatigue and technique go to crap all over again. This is almost like starting the race completely over, because now you're in a different state of fatigue. Your mind is going crazy. How am I going to catch up? Or you just kind of give up and start cruising because you've got so much arm pump, you're so tired, and you have no idea what to do. Well, if you never trained for cardio, you never trained with weights, you never trained for motocross, and you're just riding, you're not going to be able to catch them up because your fitness level is not going to be up to par. So with fatigue and mixed with bad technique is only going to lead to a fall or even an injury, especially when you're tired. You don't want to jump this jump. You're just so fatigued that you just want to pull over. You've got to make sure that if you're riding, you've got to improve your fitness. So these are 3 tips that I would give somebody. Look, these are the things that you got to work on. You got to start working on your starts. Get out in front of the pack. Once you do that, fix your technique, practice the way you would race in order to improve the way you race on those race weekends. And then 3rd, do not fall. That means consistent laps. Constantly put in consistent laps. And I guess tip 3 should also be fitness too, because you need to increase not only your cardio endurance, but you've got to increase your muscular endurance, because that bike is 200 plus pounds, and especially like you're going down a straight and the bike is just bouncing around underneath you. If something crazy was to happen, you need to have the strength in order to control it, depending on what that is, whatever that obstacle that you just happen to hit. Or it's not even an obstacle, it's just acceleration bumps, braking bumps, whatever it is. You've got to have strength in order to control the bike as you go around the track. So to improve your fitness, I have a program for motocross riders. If you've never ridden or you've never trained rather for motocross, the program is called Iron Foundation. And it's 3 months of phase training in order to get you in shape for motocross. Now, my goal is to be the Alden Baker of training for every rider, not just the top guys that are out there, because I want to see the local motocross racing to be more competitive. I want to see the racing in actual motocross more competitive. I want to see more than just the top riders take all the points, take all the championships. I want to see everybody improve, and I want the knowledge from Alden Baker to be available to everybody. And that's my goal. And I'm 100% committed because this is just me here. I do the podcast, I do the YouTube, I do my website, everything. So if that doesn't show that I'm 100% committed, I don't know what else will. So if you want to get that program, Iron Foundation, you can find that on my website at twinhalos.com. Also, if you want to support the podcast or the YouTube, you could donate at twinhalos.com in the donate tab in the main menu. And if you want to help out even further without it costing you anything, you can leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you think of this podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all at Twin Halos. Oh, apparently I'm going through puberty all over again. But let me know what you guys want to see here. You can let me know on YouTube, in the YouTube comments. You can let me know on Facebook. You can let me know on Instagram. Those are the 3 social media platforms that I'm constantly on. So let me know what it is you would like to see. And if you happen to be on Twitter, I'll try it out if somebody decides they want to hit me up on Twitter. At Twitter, it's also at Twin Halos. So that's it for today's podcast. So go out there, practice like you're going to race so that racing feels like another practice.